Hey everybody, it's Nate from the Voices of Orion Project. I've got an interesting video here that I'm going to share with you tonight, and you're going to really like this because it's definitely out of the norm. What I want to talk about is NSA harassment of starseeds and UFO experiencers, ET abductees, and so forth. As you know, the NSA is literally spying on everybody. They're spying on not just the people in the United States, but they're spying on every person around the globe that has some connection to the internet or a phone. And is that piece of garbage, that evil piece of trash, that traitorous piece of, no, I'm not even going to say it, James Clapper said, we don't spy on people, we spy on interesting people. And he was referring to people like myself, and he was referring to, obviously political enemies of the Democratic Party or the Chinese CCP and so forth. And but anyway, I digress. What happened is, and I'm going to go back, now that I've vented a little bit, I'm going to talk about how this began. I've been getting harassed by the NSA for about 18 months now. And it started when I emailed Rex Bear at the Leak Project back in September. It was like September 26th or 27th of 2019. And this led to him doing a video about the email that I sent him. You can watch that on my playlist or in his channel. It's easier to find on my playlist since you're already here. It's the one that talks about the abductee or contactee and satanic cult. So, to best understand this, I'm going to give you a brief summary of things, and then this is something that I'm going to be talking about in the future. I'm probably going to have to do a series of videos on this because of the time restraints. We're talking hours of discussion, and so you're not going to be disappointed there. You're definitely not going to be disappointed with this video either. So, getting back to what I was saying, I guess I should start from the very beginning. Back in it was mid-April of 2019, I went on a vacation to Texas. And when I got back on the plane, about a half hour before the plane landed, I got really sick. It was the first time I've ever been airsick on a plane. And I was so sick that, I had literally sweat dripping off of my upper thigh on my calves. There was no vomit bag on the Southwest flight. I guess due to cost-cutting measures, and you've been on a plane lately, or for a while now, it's been this way. You're basically sitting in a small child-sized seat. So if I would have gotten sick, I would have puked over everybody. And I barely made it through the flight. The last half hour, it was hell. It took me 45 minutes to get my strength back. I had to go out and sit out in the lobby area before I could get my luggage. At that point, my health went downhill. And if you can see, I've got this right here. I'm looking at the camera, it's opposite. This big hatchet-like wound right here. And a couple years ago, I had a 2-level cervical fusion at that spot. It was C57, C5667, I think it was. And I had plate and screws there. Anyway, it caused a massive amount of scar tissue to form, and that scar tissue began to pinch my vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve controls your autonomic nervous system. And as a result of that, I began to die. And so a couple of months into this illness, I was fighting with doctors, trying to get help. I finally had to go to the head of neurology at Johns Hopkins University. I just got lucky. I called a case manager, I think it's called, and they got me through, and he had gotten me an appointment to get tested for this. And it takes about 10 to 12 months to get tested at the University of Maryland. And so I was in the process of waiting for that. And my ET contacts had told me that at that point, my soul contract was pretty much up, and then I was going to die. And I was at peace with it. I was actually pretty happy, because if you saw my last video about the soul transference, just keep that in mind. That had already happened. I'd had that memory all my life. Plus, I'd had years and years of ET contact, and I knew where I was going. I was going home, and I was happy about it. I felt at peace for once in my life, because I've never felt like I fit in. I never felt that I belonged here, And I always knew that there was a home for me, and I always wanted to go back to it. I'd never wanted to be here. And so for this to happen to me, for most people it would be pretty devastating, but for me, the only concern I had was for my family, and I had a pretty sizable life insurance policy, so I knew that they'd be taken care of. But as for me though, I was at peace. For the first time in my life, I felt good about something. I felt like, okay, I'm finally going home. I get to be with my friends and my family again, and I get to go to my home planet, and everything's going to be good. Excuse me. And so a couple of months into this, I was waiting to be tested for it. We got into the September. It was like September 26th, 27th. I was watching a Rex Bear video, and I said to myself, I've been trying to get a hold of UFO researchers and get people's attention since 2008, and contacting them, not just about all of my experiences and my past life memories and stuff, as well as the contact that I have. But I was also wanting, my main thing is I felt that it was important to tell Rex Bear, because I had emailed him twice before, and I don't remember, I didn't bring up the satanic cult stuff. I brought up some other things about myself, and I never heard from him. And I contacted plenty of other people, and I'd always held back on the satanic cult stuff. And what I mean by the satanic cult, and by the way, I'm not a Satanist, okay, so I want to dispel that suspicion right away. Nothing in that particular religion, if you call it that, resonates with me. You could probably say that a lot of a lot of my belief system is about being kind to people and being a good person. And it has nothing to do with the types of beliefs that are in the satanic religions, because that's more or less service to self. I'm for service to others. I do things, for the most part, I live my life in a selfless way. Not a selfish way, a selfless way. So, but now this is something I'm going to talk about in detail in a series of videos. So, but just to give you a summary of it, this is what happened. Back in 2005, I was subconsciously programmed by the extraterrestrials that I've had contact with prior for my whole life to seek out people on the internet that were like myself. After I had a 3-week period of some very intense empathic and telepathic psychic experiences that took place after I had a near-death allergic reaction to the allergy drug Singulair. I was in a hospital for close to a week with 104, 105 fever, hallucinations, my muscles locked up. I even had muscle fragments that were in my urinary tract, and they had to keep me on excessive amounts of IV fluids in order to keep those from lodging into the membrane of my kidneys. So it was a pretty bad reaction. And right after the last day in the hospital, I started having these telepathic experiences and empathic experiences. They lasted about 3 weeks. And then I had a telepathic message one night in my room, and it said, "You need to go find people like yourself, and they're on the internet." So I went on a 2-year search for this, and I searched high and low everywhere I went. I couldn't find anything. Couldn't find anybody. Until finally I kept coming back to this particular website called The Joy of Satan. It was thejoyofsatan.org. And it was the last place I would have ever looked. But for some reason, and this is because of the programming, I was just pulled into it. It was like, this is it. This is what you have. This is where you have to go. And I'm saying to myself, there's no way in hell that this is where I need to be at. This is. But I read the website. I looked into it over a period of a couple of weeks. At first, as a curiosity, but it wasn't. It was. I felt really strongly compelled that I had to get involved in this in some way. So. I took the cautionary route, and I contacted the person that created the group. Her name is Andrea Harrington. She goes by the name High Priestess Maxine. And there's a whole backstory to her, but which I'll get to in another video, but I want to keep this kind of short, as short as I possibly can. And we exchanged a few emails, and she invited me in the group. And right as I made the decision to do that, I was sending her an email, and I had a very intense extraterrestrial experience. I had an extraterrestrial astral project. This individual's his name is Rolakia. I found this out, of course, later, and I had contact with him for close to a year. He came into my room, and had an office room. It was an added-on room to the house. So it was rectangular in shape, and the entrance was at the far end of it. It was a pretty narrow room, and he came walking in, and I felt a presence, and I looked to my left, and I saw what looked like heat coming off of a hot pavement, like heat waves, and it was forming a silhouette of a person, and I heard a sound that sounded like a rain stick. And I could see that he kind of like had something, I don't know if it was a ceremonial gown or a headdress, but I couldn't tell because it was in like a waveform. And he lifted his arm, what appeared to be his arm, and he touched me on my left side. And at that point in time, I was stoned off my ass. I just smoked a lot of pot. And instantly, I was completely sober. And the pain, I've had multiple spinal surgeries, and especially my lumbar spine. That was the first, I think that was the first or second surgery, and I don't remember, but it was the first. And instantly, as soon as I got touched, I was charged up full of energy. I was totally sober, and the pain in my rear end went away because I would have a sore tailbone all the time. That was some L5S1. That whole disc was just destroyed, and it ached before it totally disintegrated. So I was constantly having tenderness issues and aching coming from that area. This led me to getting involved in a group because I realized at that point that I was on the right track, because the ETs that I've dealt with my whole life that were interfering with my life in a passive way without really making much direct contact with me instantly began to show up. So I spent 7 months there, at which point I had a series of very intense experiences. I became a group contactee. What I found out was that the Joy of Satan was not a satanic cult. What it really was a pagan cult, and it was all based on the Enki Ea mythos from Sumeria. It was based on the writings of Zechariah Sitchin, and they combined that with the Egyptian religion, what we know of it, as well as the Eastern religions and various occult teachings from Aleister Crowley on down. So there was meditation, there was rituals that you had to do, there was all these different things, there was spiritual warfare. There was people in the group who were astral projecting, they were having group astral projection experiences, astral sex, you name it. It was literally going on, and there was a lot of astral attacks taking place there with enemy Nordics from the Galactic Federation. That's what they were supposed to be, but that's a whole nother subject. I'll be getting to that video here soon. We're going to be talking about astral attacks and who actually sends them and how they're used. And it's exactly the opposite of what everybody thinks it is. And that's going to be an important piece of information for everybody. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying. I was in this cult. I got out of the cult around 7 months, and at that point the extraterrestrial contact became personal. It was no longer in a theological type of wrapper or facade. The theological facade was stripped away, and it became a very personal type of contact where I began to have contact with my extraterrestrial spouse. And she and I have been in contact on basically almost a daily basis since then. And she's a tall Hajian woman, and I'll get to her in the future. Probably within a week or two, I'll have a video where I explain that, my relationship with her and how that works. So, and I also had contact with Rolakia. He was the one that came into the room and started this whole thing off. Now, this whole thing was planned. And what I found out was that this cult was actually created by Orion extraterrestrials. It was an Orion faction of the Galactic Federation. And they were running a program. They still are running a program. And I found out that there's many programs like this on social media. And this is something that I've got to blow wide open. They want this exposed. What these cults are, and these groups and forums, what they do is they act as a virtual temple complex. And what a virtual temple complex is is that it's basically like a physical temple complex, such as in Egypt or South America, anywhere around the world where you see temples and pyramids. That would be a temple complex, but this is a virtual one. And they're using social media to create convergence points for starseeds. These are people that are subconsciously programmed, what I call subconscious psychic programming. And I also have another term called subconscious psychic networking. And that's when they bring two or more people together for a specific purpose. And when you're dealing with something like this, it's definitely two or more people. In fact, when I was in the Joy of Satan, there was a total, when I was in there, between, I think it was around 8,000, between 4,000 and 8,000. I think it was around 8,000. The last time I checked, before their Yahoo group was taken down, it was 24,000 members. Now they've got a private forum. I haven't been involved in it since 2006. But I did, every 4 or 5 years, I would check in on it and take a look. So a lot has happened. I don't know what's going on there now. I was told that it's still being utilized and it's still active, and there's other subgroups. And that's something that I have to get into in the future. But anyway, I didn't keep any of the theology, and it was just after that, it was basically two-way contact. I was finally achieved the goal, which was to finally communicate with these extraterrestrials that I have been dealing with my entire life. Anyway, fast forwarding ahead of that, getting back to 2019, I was up late, I was watching the Leak Project video, and I decided, hey, I'm terminally ill, I'm going to die. I've tried contacting researchers since 2008. It's about time that I took another stab at this, and just to see what would happen. I contacted Rex 2 other times and never got a response. And I never brought up the satanic cult at that point. Little did I know what was taking place was that I was subconsciously programmed again to contact Rex. And, what Rex didn't realize is that he was also subconsciously programmed to open my email and to do the video about it. He didn't find this out until about a week or two later when Elizabeth April came on his show, and he waited about an hour and 10 minutes into the interview with her, and before he asked a question that was burning his ass because he had an implanted dreamscape. So let me tell you a bit about that. What happened is I sent him an email, and figured, it's the last time I do this. If he responds, great. If he doesn't, great. I don't care. I'm going to die. I'm going home. I don't have to deal with this crap anymore. So I went to bed, and I woke up, and it was probably about 9:30. I woke up, I went in my little office, and I sat down in front of the computer, and I turned it on, and I was checking my email, and I saw that there was a Leak Project video. So I clicked on it, and there it was. I mean, I was in total shock. I broke out in a sweat, and I was already having a problem with my autonomic nervous system, and there was a variety of odd types of phenomena that were symptoms that were taking place there, excessive sweating and so forth, and heart palpitations, blood pressure spikes, you name it. It was pretty horrible. But my heart was beating out of my chest, and this was a legitimate response because, I was in shock. I didn't expect this. I couldn't even watch the video. I got up and came back about an hour later after I got myself together, and I watched it, and I was in shock. I was still in shock, and I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking, man, I hope he doesn't want to eat. I hope he doesn't want to interview me, because at that point in time, I was dealing with speech impairment. I was really sick, and I didn't want an interview. I just wanted him to investigate it and maybe do a show about it, do a video about it, and help expose it, because it wasn't something that I was willing to do. And so at that point, I watched it, left the room, got something to eat, did whatever I did. I came back, and there was another video. And this video was about Rex actually having a dream that was extremely vivid. And it was more vivid than normal. And when I heard the video, I knew what they did. I knew that the ETs that I deal with had implanted an artificial dreamscape in Rex. And I didn't know why they did it, but it seemed as if they were attempting to put fear in him. And that's what Elizabeth April said. They're trying to elicit fear in you. And but she also told Rex, she goes, but you agreed to this. And, you know, Rex was probably, I don't know what he was thinking, but I mean, if I had heard something like that and never had any real contact, I would think, you know, I agreed to this. When did I do that? And these are things that take place with your higher self at a subconscious level, and you're not aware of it, which is something I'm going to be talking about extensively in the future. And so anyway, I did this video. I mean, I'm sorry, excuse me. He did the video, and I was in shock, and immediately I initiated telepathic contact with my spouse, and my Hajjaian spouse, and she told me, and this was a big shocker. She said, "You're going to work for us now, and we're going to heal you, and you're going to do a social media project for us, and it's going to be quite extensive. We're going to heal you. You're going to live longer, and you're going to basically work for us, and this is it. And you've agreed to this at a subconscious level. Your higher self has agreed to it." And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. So then I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? And what's interesting is when they program you like this, you kind of know what's going on. You have a sense about it. You just do it. It isn't like you debate. It's just like, you know, you have to do it. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? And she said, I want you to continue to correspond with Rex Bear and tell him everything that you're comfortable with. You know, tell him everything you possibly can until you reach your threshold where you don't want to go any further. So I said, okay. So for the next couple of weeks, I emailed Rex Bear, and I told him extensive amounts of information. And you know, for those of you who watch his program, you would be surprised how much information I gave him, because he doesn't really talk about it. He was afraid to talk about it. He's afraid to have me on the show. He doesn't want to do an interview with me. He won't respond to me by email. He's pretty much walled himself off to me because he's afraid that he doesn't know what I'm dealing with, and he hasn't seen any of these videos that I'm going to be doing. Eventually, he may have to deal with this and revisit this and go back into it. That's what I was told is going to happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath, because there's still something called free will. And if he decides, even if his higher self wants him to do it, if he decides he doesn't want to do it, or if somebody in his life pressures him, such as his wife, and says, I don't trust this guy, he was involved in a satanic cult, I read those emails, they sound kind of off the wall. I mean, it's really intense information about extraterrestrial life and the way the society's structured, and a bunch of other things that most people aren't talking about. And so I don't want you to do it. So he may never do it. I'm not holding my breath. But anyway, this is where the NSA stuff comes in, because about a month after I stopped emailing Rex, and I probably sent Rex, I don't know, about 20 plus emails, 20, 25, and they were extensive. I wrote probably half a book to this man. And anyway, getting back to what I was going to say about the information that was in those emails, the only thing that Rex has actually brought up, I noticed he talked about some things in conversation with someone. So I brought up how the extraterrestrials influence people subconsciously in Hollywood, and how they actually are manipulating our entire planet from a social engineering perspective. And I went into that in quite a bit of detail, because that's my specialty in this project is extraterrestrial planetary social engineering of the human race. And we're going to be getting into that stuff, and that's going to be some far out information, and it's going to coincide with a lot of what's being done at the Farsight Institute, because they're uncovering a lot of the same stuff. But the one thing I wanted to bring up that Rex did touch upon is he did a video about something called the Cube of Saturn. And I had told Rex about how the extraterrestrials generate the planetary simulation that we're in, which is another subject that I hope to be getting to within 2 weeks, because I'm going away on Thursday of this week. So I'll be away for a few days, and I'm coming back, and I plan on doing a joint video with my project partner, and I hope to get into the planetary simulation subject between now and then. And so I told Rex, I said that there's technology inside the planet Saturn. This has been partially remote viewed by Farsight. And I told him how the rings are artificial. Read the Ringmakers of Saturn book. They're created by large AI-controlled tubular drones. There's a frequency generator. It's creating the six-sided storm at the South Pole. It's oriented towards the Earth and Mars. I told him that there's a modulator system on Mars and the Moon, and a soul switching station on the Moon. I told him about that stuff. Excuse me. And he did this video about the cube of Saturn and brought up some interesting things, and he said he remote viewed some type of technological device there that was inside the atmosphere, and he said it was shaped like a cube, which I wasn't aware of. So that was about it, though. After that, I mean, it was nothing. So he kind of swept me under the rug and hid me away from everybody. He did all of you a disservice. I think we're going to have to call him out on this at some point in the future. I think we got to get this project up and running and get it pretty large before Rex gains his courage back. And I think what it's going to come down to, if you watch this program, you'll see that Rex generally only wants to put people on there unless they have to have a book or a website or did a documentary or a movie. He tries to keep the famous guests on, the people that are well known, but he does put on people that are smaller and less significant. So maybe he'll reconsider one day, or maybe I have to grow this to a certain size, and then he'll have no choice because he'll need me for ad revenue, for views, and because I'll be hopefully moving forward with this, and it won't be just an obscure YouTube channel. Hopefully it's going to go like I've been told it's going to go. It's going to get bigger. So anyway, getting back to the NSA stuff, Rex is being monitored by the National Security Agency, and he didn't know this. And what I found out was that the National Spying Agency or National Security Agency is in charge of monitoring extraterrestrial affairs here on Earth. They're keeping tabs on people like myself. And you can be an experiencer, and you can talk about your experiences, and you can have a YouTube channel, and you can do this or that, and you're not going to notice much. You may never get bothered by them, but they're definitely going to keep an eye on you, because now they have the technology. We know it because Edward Snowden and James Clapper and this whole thing has come out. So we know what's going on. So anyway, what happened is a month after I stopped emailing Rex, I started getting weird sound effects on both my cell phone and my landline phone. I have a voice over IP landline phone with Verizon, and I have just a regular cell phone. And I began having keyword activated sound effects. Phrases like targeted individual would set the sound effects off. Anything to do with extraterrestrials. And I noticed that this was only a problem with people that I talked to about these subjects. And at that point, there was only 3 people. There was a guy that I know that used to live in Virginia that was involved in the Joy of Satan. There's another contact. He's had the same thing. He's the guy that did my the UFO video that I published on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be uploading that back up soon. They made it to where he and I couldn't even talk on the phone. We had to go to Signal. And I can guarantee you Signal is pretty safe. They can't get into it. He used to work for DHS, so he told me that. That's what the people who work for DHS use. They know it works because they know they can't get into it, so they use it for their own private matters. I mean, these are the people that spy on you and do all this crap to you, like the people in the NSA, but at the same time, if you went into their house, they'd have tape over their webcam. So they're hypocrites. And so anyway, they made it just impossible for us to communicate. I mean, it was just everything from drop calls to like just making his voice sound like it was in slow motion. I had screeching sounds, digital beeping sounds, all this crap. And I have a neighbor who's 2 doors down from me, and I called him just out of the blue, and what I didn't know is his ex-wife was in the NSA, and she's actually in the department that does this stuff to people. And she has it out for him because he's done some things to her. So apparently he's on a list, and this is programmed into a big computer system. It's probably artificially intelligent at this point. And when I called him, I mean, it was off the hook, the types of sound effects that I got when I called him. It was ridiculous. So I got this other friend that I talked to just about, 4 or 5 days a week. We'll talk for 20, 30 minutes sometimes. He's off during the day like me, so we talk and everything. And I began sharing these stories with him, and as soon as I did, that's when the sound effects started, because they were monitoring everything. They've been monitoring everything I do. And I'm doing this video tonight to gaslight those bastards, because I just, I think that they're the scum of the earth. And there's somebody right now that gets paid probably $200,000 a year to go to the NSA headquarters off the 495, actually off of 295 here in Maryland. And they probably go into a sound booth and they make all these ridiculous sounds. I've had everything from water running through a pipe, sounds of rain sticks. I've had sanding, grinding, power tools. I've had lectures. I've had people talking. I've had screeching sounds. And the most annoying part of it is when they play my own voice back at a delay and modulate the noise and modulate the the volume to the point where it's hard to keep your train of thought. Well, now after all this time, I can have them going full blown on the phone with me, and I can still hold a conversation and not miss a beat. So F you, NSA. And what's interesting is that when I'm talking to somebody, the other person I'm talking to doesn't hear this. Sometimes they do. There's been a few instances, and I had a friend who was pretty skeptical. This is the guy that I talk about ET stuff with, and he started noticing that something was going on with his computer, and I did too. They would literally drain the bandwidth and just suck your processor down to where it was like barely functional, and they would download your entire hard drive. And I had them do that multiple times. My ET contact tells me that they turned my webcam on, so they're looking at this backdrop here. They're not seeing shit. They're seeing an Egyptian temple. This is a photographic backdrop I bought off of eBay. So if you're listening, NSA, that's where I bought it. If you want one for yourself, go after yourself and buy one of these. So anyway, yeah, that's my story about NSA harassment. And I haven't been followed yet. I haven't been harassed other than the phone harassment, but I think that's more than enough, and I think it's disgusting, and it needs to stop. We need to get our government under control, because if we don't, we're going to be screwed. We're going to be in a Chinese social credit score system. We're going to have a new world order government, and they're already poisoning us with vaccines, by the way. So, by the way, don't get it. Save yourself and your family. It's a biological weapon designed to depopulate. So, I'm going to be dealing with that too. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about it in a way that gets around the algorithm. And if I have to go on other platforms and talk about it, I will. I'm going to take these people on. I'm going to be a thorn in their side, because they deserve to have as many thorns as they possibly can get in their side until they bleed out and they die and they go away. James Clapper should be in prison for treason. The Biden administration should be under arrest and in prison. And the list goes on and on and on. We are under control of the most evil, the most sinister people you can possibly imagine. This is an emerging technocracy, and they are destroying our liberties in every country across the world. And it's an absolute travesty of justice that's taking place. And I'm just, I'm overwhelmed with the whole thing that's happening. I'm seeing the world being ripped apart in front of me. And they do not like the extraterrestrial presence. They make deals with them. They have secret treaties. They kept it a secret, and they're slowly disclosing it so they can control the narrative. But we're going to change that. All of us together are going to change that. We're going to get the truth out, whether they like it or not. It's the experiencers that are going to give everyone else the disclosure that they deserve to have, and not these criminals in government. They're not going to keep this secret any longer. We're coming out of our closets, and we're going to step out into the light, and we're going to tell everybody that we've had contact, and I'm going to help make that happen. and I'm going to empower other people to do the same thing. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm going to have plenty more, and I will see you guys soon. And by the way, the path to ascension isn't just to learn to love one another. You first have to get your government under control, because what they're going to do to you and I, their plan is to plug us into an AI system where they can monitor thought. And then once they do, if we're not already dead from the vaccines, you can kiss your asses goodbye, because it'll be the end of the human race. And that's contrary to what the extraterrestrial plan is for humanity. Human race's future is actually pretty bright, but it won't be bright until we get through this period of darkness. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.